right, it's time for Let's Talk Racing. Got Al Pearce and Caitlyn Joyner in here tonight. And Mom sitting in the background. Didn't want to be on the camera. And of course myself, Roger Brehm. How's everybody doing tonight?
Well, if you'd get the names right, we'd probably be a whole lot better off.
Al Pearce and Caitlyn Joyner? Oh, that part? Oh,
she doesn't look a thing like you, Roger. Let me tell you right now.
Well, you look so cute over there. Al, you could be waiting.
Well, then that's why you should take your name off of her. And give her credit for being who she is.
I can fix that.
But anyway.
You can go ahead and talk while I'm doing it.
There you go. You got part of it right.
There we go.
All right. Better.
Me again.
Now that I know who I am, I know what to talk about.
So, we had a couple of really awesome races, or several really awesome races this weekend. You had the Xfinity and Cup race at the Roval, and we had the Martinsville race for the late model guys. Al, I know you were at Charlotte.
I was.
What'd you think about all that?
Saturday wasn't anything special. I think the Xfinity guys knew that they didn't know very much, so they drove accordingly. Somebody asked me the other day, well, where were all the Cup drivers? Why wasn't Busch in it? Why wasn't Harvick in the Saturday race? And of course, people forget or don't know that once the Xfinity playoffs begin, Cup drivers cannot run. NASCAR wants the Xfinity Championship to be decided strictly by Xfinity drivers in their races. They don't want to have 5 or 6 Cup guys winning Xfinity races and running up front and taking points. So there were no full-time Cup drivers on Saturday, and that race was okay, but it wasn't spectacular. Spectacular for God, I've already forgotten the guy's name who won it. Chase Briscoe.
There you go.
Spectacular for him.
Yeah.
Because it was his first Xfinity win ever. But it just wasn't that exciting a deal. Sunday was an altogether different story. The atmosphere, the emotion, the buzz around town, everything about Sunday reminded me of racing 25 years ago. People were excited. They got there early. There was traffic, which you used to never have to worry about.
Yeah.
And it was a great show. I think I wrote something for Autoweek saying that NASCAR fans have become so fickle lately. Everybody wants something different. They want a dirt track race. They want Wednesday night short track races. They're tired of 500-mile speedway races. And Marcus Smith seems to have hit on something that virtually everybody was happy with.
Yeah.
So I don't think NASCAR would like a steady diet of Roval kind of races, but once in a while, man, it was pretty good.
It was insane. There was a lot of action that race.
Well, people will remember, as fans are often will do, fans will remember primarily the last 500 yards.
Yeah.
They'll remember Johnson. They'll remember Truex. They'll remember Blaney. They'll remember the big wreck just before that dramatically reshaped the whole rundown. But mostly they walked out of there that Sunday afternoon thinking, God, did you see those guys wreck at the end? I mean, who says they're just racing for points? Who says that there's not any great glory in winning? And yet, I have to say, and I watched every second of it, I think Jimmy Johnson screwed up.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, he's my driver, and I was like, dude, what are you doing? He tried to get low, and he just hit the brakes too hard, too fast, and just locked up the right side.
He said he had been great in that braking zone all day.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. But the championship basically was not on the line until that last moment. And if he had simply used his head
And calm down a little bit.
And accepted second, he'd be in the playoffs now. He'd be in the playoffs headed to Dover, where he's awesome. He's been in the playoffs headed to Talladega, where he's got a good record. He'd be in the playoffs going to Kansas City. But, and if he got through those three, he's going to Martinsville, and he's going to Phoenix, and he's going to Texas, or Martinsville, Texas, Phoenix. To me, it'll be a sad thing if Johnson performs well enough. Bye, Raj. Roger just left, by the way. To me, it'll really be tragic, or sad, not tragic. 9/11 was tragic. Racing is not. Anyway, it would really be sad if Johnson was good enough the rest of the year, and if you computed his points as if he were in the playoffs, and he went to Homestead and had a great night and would have won the championship under that circumstance, or you got to think back at Charlotte and think, man, just finish second, get enough points to advance, and second would have gotten him there.
Yeah, for sure.
Second would have got him there easily. But he told us standing on pit road, and I will say this for him. Jimmy Johnson was as he displayed his professionalism on pit road Sunday afternoon as well as anybody ever has. Because here comes the media group of which I was a part. We're all go running up to Jimmy. And he absolutely answered every question. He did not duck anything. He didn't say, I've had enough, you guys. And people who came up later asked the same questions. He'd already answered them twice before. He answered them again. And he said, basically, I thought more about winning than I did about earning points. And he admitted he knew what the math was. He knew that he was in position to easily score enough points to advance. He knew that. But winning became such an obsession that it overrode his good intentions, and it cost him. He admitted that. But he stood there and told everybody time and time again, I just forgot that winning would have been nice, but points would have been better. He said the old veteran, meaning himself, should have taken a safer path. So, on the contrary, Denny Hamlin got out of his car and absolutely sprinted to his hauler. Didn't say hello, goodbye, go to hell. Just ran away from people trying to talk to him. Now, which is ironic because Denny must have known halfway through the race he wasn't going to make it. He was running in the 20s much of the day. He got to top 10 occasionally because of how pit cycles came around and cautions. But most of the day, Denny Hamlin in the 11 car were an afterthought. And he really showed himself by not standing up like a man and explaining, man, we had a bad season. That's all there is to it. So, anyway, kudos to Johnson for being the pro that we all knew he was or is. kind of a shout out at Hamlin for not being very professional. And big ups to Marcus Smith for creating something that, at least for a weekend, got NASCAR people excited again. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
By the way, we do have a poll going on tonight on the show. If everybody looks to the upper right side, you should see a spot where you can answer a question about, did Jimmy mess up? Very simple. Your opinions. Ronald Klein said, by the way, what about the other 28 races during the season? If all he had to do was to have gotten one more playoff point during the regular season, he wouldn't have had to advance so hard or run so hard.
Well, yeah, well, of course. I mean, if you hadn't had a flat tire at Las Vegas running the top 5, if you hadn't done this, if you hadn't done that, but still, yeah, you can. I mean, hell, you can go back to Daytona 500 and say if you'd finished one position better, but you can't do that. Or you can, but it's a fool's argument. You go to the moment when the decision was made. It's like a football team getting behind 35-0 and they rally back and they lose 35-34. Well, if we kicked a field goal in the first half, we wouldn't be in this spot. Well, of course not. But at the time, you don't know that. You take what you can get. Jimmy simply should have stayed put. And I know he wants to win. Hell, he might win at Dover Sunday. He might win at Talladega. He might win 2 or 3 races the rest of the year. That team suddenly has found something. They've been pretty good the last 3 or 4 weeks. But he knew better. That's what gets me. He knew the math. That team had somebody monitoring the scoring stats. They had somebody looking at the live NASCAR point standings. I mean, every lap it changed. And Jimmy knew exactly. He was in great shape going through the last chicane and through 3 and 4. He was in great shape to make it. But he wanted to win so desperately that he kind of screwed up.
Where did him and Truex end up finishing?
Oh, I'm sorry?
Where did they end up finishing?
8th.
8th?
Could have been second, finished 8th.
I think Truex finished like 14th.
Yeah, he was a little bit slower to get going.
Well, but see, Truex knew he was in the playoffs going forward. He didn't have to worry that much about it. And the reason I think Jimmy messed up, and the reason I will argue that point for the rest of the year, was Jimmy said he messed up. And the only person we know who knew exactly what was going on in that race car was Jimmy. And if he said I screwed up, who are we to say he didn't? So, anyway.
You got a caller over there, Al. On Al's phone.
Oh.
Let's talk racing.
Hey, how you doing? CE Falk.
All right. Go ahead and introduce yourself, give a quick bio, and then we'll get right into Martinsville.
Oh, okay. Who's all there tonight?
You got Al Pearce, you got Caitlyn Joyner, myself, and one other spectator in the background who wants to remain nameless.
CE, you remember me. I'm the guy in Daytona who said that the CE Falk that I knew would have knocked Kyle Larson right in the nose, and you were much too professional to do that. You remember that?
You know those young reporters? They try to egg you on.
Oh yeah, the young guys that are new to the business. But do you remember that moment?
I do, absolutely. I was like, man, come on, I'm not 10 years old.
Yeah, I know, but you still you handle it like a pro. You did well, and he deserved to get his nose knocked in by somebody, and eventually it'll happen.
Well,
but
don't worry, Al. I mean, just because I hadn't seen the guy at Best Buy or Panera doesn't mean he's off the hook.
I told somebody at Charlotte, I said, the guy that won Martinsville last night, Larson crashed him at Daytona, but it took him 2 hits to get him turned around. I said, Larson hit him one time, and CE recovered so nicely, and he was about to win the race, and Larson hit him again. So you could always say it took 2 hits to get you turned around, and he turned out to be pretty decent. And he's Chevrolet's best hope right now. But anyway, tell us about Martinsville.
I was really cheering for Jeffrey Earnhardt right there to get that thing fired back up so he could beat him to the line. But things happen. I feel bad for 7th time, but irregardless, it all comes around. So.
Yeah. Tell us about Martinsville.
Well, I think Roger wanted me to introduce myself.
Okay.
My name's CE Falk. Yeah, my name's CE Falk. I'm 30 years old. I originally from Virginia Beach, Virginia. I currently reside in Mooresville, North Carolina. Been racing basically my whole life for about over 20 years now, and started out running go-karts, running at Langley Speedway on Sundays, and progressed into the legend cars, and ran legends for quite a while, and then late model stocks for a little bit, and then Hooters Pro Cup, and then back to late models, and I kind of made a home in the late model scene. 2007 was kind of my first real season foray into it, and have been fortunate to have a lot of success. I've ended up winning 4 track championships at Langley Speedway, won races at Motor Mile Speedway, South Boston Speedway, won the Denny Hamlin Showdown in 2010, won the Hampton Heat a few times, but then this weekend I won the biggest race of my life, Martinsville. The holy grail late model stock car of racing, and there's a lot of guys like the Daytona 500 that have never won it, and everyone considers great drivers, but winning Martinsville seems to just put you over the top, and to finally have an opportunity and a chance to win Martinsville and have a clock in my home is everything I've ever dreamt about.
I do have a question. Did you set it to ring
Okay,
every 15 minutes like you told everybody you were?
So it was really kind of crazy. I wasn't expecting to get the clock till it showed up in the mail. That's what my mom told me, and I believe everything she says. So we were getting ready to leave the racetrack, and I'm driving the truck and trailer, and we're in the parking lot in Martinsville still. We're the last hauler to leave, and Shane Laws called me, race director at Langley, who was helping out in Martinsville, and he said, "Hey, what do you want to do about this clock?" And I said, "Well, I want it." And so at 3 in the morning, 3 Martinsville employees helped me load the clock in the back of our trailer. And it was probably the smoothest ride home I've ever had in the truck and trailer, trying to make sure nothing happened to that thing. and we got the thing unloaded Sunday, and she's been chiming on every hour ever since. And on Monday, I walked out of the house, and I've gotten a lot of congratulatory texts and phone calls and stuff, and it's still kind of hard to believe, but I was walking out the door Monday to go to my real job, buying cars every day for my business, and I walked back inside, and I was like, the clock's still there. It wasn't a dream. It actually happened. No one's taken it from me, or it hasn't disappeared. It just hasn't aspirated. And so that really hit me. But then my wife, about 11:30, called, and she goes, "What have you done to the clock?" I was like, What happened? Did it break? What's going on? She goes, "It is going off every 15 minutes. Can you please come home and make it stop?" I was like, "Nah." I said, "You're going to endure it for a couple of days. It'll be all right."
That's pretty cool.
Now we're just on it. So now we're on every hour right now, but it's certainly been a joy to have in our home for sure.
Yeah, I talked to Joe in Charlotte on Sunday morning, Joe Falk, and he's just as happy as he could be. Could not have been happier for you, and said, "Man, that's great. That's he said that's the biggest win our family's ever had, and this and that, and this and that." So he was pretty happy. I talked to Elton. I said, "Elton, at one time, you had the only grandfather clock, in Tidewater." And I did not know this, but I don't know that the late model winners got one back in the day when Elton won it. I know Phil won at Martinsville years ago, and I think Mike Buffkin and Joe Gaeta both won at Martinsville, and one or the other had it taken away from them. But you are the latest in a long line of Tidewater drivers who've gone up there in the mountains and done pretty well.
Yeah, we've had some good success there in a couple of years. It's taken me a while to kind of figure the place out, but ever since about I had a really good car the first year I went, and I was just too stupid to realize how good of a car I actually had. And I got messing with another older driver, and Dennis Setzer ended up winning the race. And then I actually seen Dennis at the Cup race the following weekend, and because he was right behind me when it happened, I said, Dennis, do you think there was something I could have done different? He goes, yeah, you could have taken your time and realized you had the best car. I was like, that was a tough one to swallow. So I've kind of always remembered that, and like I said, since about 2015, we've had really good cars there. We've qualified in the top 15, top 5 every year since. We've won our heat race or been in the top 3 of our heat race. And, this year we didn't quite have the best car, but we stayed in the position all night long. We were up front, and when it counted, we were able to pounce on opportunity.
It's your show.
So what was, how did your mindset change going through the race?
Well, from start to finish?
Yeah.
It definitely, the beginning part, we had a really good car. We were able to make some adjustments before the race, and we started 11th and drove up to 6th. So we had a really good car. And then there was a few restarts towards the end of that first segment, and we actually got to second at halfway. Everybody kind of forgets about that, but we drove up to second at halfway, and it was a new deal this year. I'm not sure how familiar you guys are with it, but NASCAR, usually we're only allowed to put on tires once during the race, and usually it's up to 4 tires, and so everybody puts on 4 tires at lap 100 or lap 175, whichever they decided. Well, we knew we were going to have 2 breaks at lap 100 and lap 180, so NASCAR said to give us a little bit more, more of a challenge. It's like you could put on those tires anytime during those 2 breaks. So you could take all 4 the first time and none the second time, or 2 and 2 or 3 and 1, however you wanted to do it. So we put on right sides, and it was the worst decision we could have made. Our car didn't handle, worth of junk, and we lost a few spots, and so at 150, we're trying to decide what are we going to do, because that didn't work, and we couldn't. The original plan was to put on rights again, just to have a new right front every time, and so we decided to put on lefts, and that seemed to pick us up a few spots before all mayhem happened, and the guys on the front row and the second row decided to keep crashing each other. So I guess the first green, white, checkered, we were all stopped on the front stretch, and I kind of came on the radio and told my guys, look, I appreciate you guys coming again this year. It means a lot. You guys have worked really, really hard. We've all worked really hard, but, I just don't think it's going to work out for us this year. You guys up front are really, really good, and it takes a catastrophe to get us up there. And they're like, nah, don't give up. It's not over yet. Anything can happen. And I was like, I know, but, I just want you guys to know I appreciate your hard work. And then those cautions kept happening. Those guys up front kept taking themselves out. And we lined up on that front row, and I knew that was going to be the best chance I ever had to win that race. And so, we lined up on the outside of the 78 car. I knew I had to get the best restart of my life. And I didn't jump the box. Me and the 78 car both went right at the line, but I think I could just experience helped me get through the gears better, and we were able to beat them to the line, and that's what counted. They ended up crashing again in turn 1, and they reverted back to the start-finish line, and we were declared the winner. And like I said, every emotion, they had me stop on the backstretch to wait for the stage to come out and all that stuff. We've been declared the winner, and every emotion from being a 10-year-old kid at Langley Speedway trying to figure out, how to run a road course with an oval go-kart, to getting my butt handed to me by Dale Lemons and Woody Howard in a legend car, to finishing second and third every week in 2008 to Greg and Danny. It all came back, all that hard work and all that time spent and tears spilled and blood and all the sacrifices my family's put up for me. It all kind of hit me on that backstretch, and it was just it was an incredible moment and something I'll cherish the rest of my life. That's for sure.
Now, how did your wife take it? Because I know you gave her a lot of good kudos when you've been talking with everybody.
Oh, I'll be honest with you, I've caught her standing in the dining room looking at the clock more than I have. She's a big supporter. She didn't really grow up in racing. She only kind of got around racing as a job. She was a PR person for a few drivers. Back in the day on the Cup circuit, and then, but I don't think she ever really understood what real short track racing was till we started dating. And I had her in motel rooms in South Boston and Radford, Virginia, and Asheboro, North Carolina, going to Caraway and Myrtle Beach, and all these places that she'd never been to. She's somebody that I really count on. My brother, I love him to death, but he works a full-time job on a small Xfinity team, so he really can't. It's not that he doesn't want to. He just couldn't, put in the hours like he used to and help me. And I have a full-time job, buying cars every day. So the only opportunity I have to work on the car is at night. And my wife would, it really meant a lot to me. But she helped me put together that car for Martinsville. That car, 2 weeks before the race, didn't have a motor, didn't have a transmission, didn't have a rear end in it. And she helped me put it all together and helped me get it together and put it in the trailer and have the drink stashed in the cooler and all the wheels cleaned and all the little things that take, they only take 5 minutes, but, there's 100 things that, that you have to do to be prepared. And she helped me, and, she's my rock, man. She helped me win this. This clock's as much hers as it is mine, that's for sure.
So is your season done, CE? You've got more races, or what's the next month or so got in mind for you?
Well, I lost money right now, so I think I'm just going to leave the table and just call 2018 a great year. I didn't win any other races besides this one, so I feel like I can go out on top this year and just. I think, like I said, we put a lot of effort into Martinsville. I still need to figure out my plans for next year. I'm actually going to go meet with the guys that own the 02 car and figure out what we're going to do next year. I think the plan is to run Motor Mile for a championship. I know that's what they'd like to do. So we're going to go meet and make sure we got all of our ducks in a row and we're ready to go for next year. So that's my plan. I love the big races at the end of the year for late models, Rodney Cook Classic at Ace and the Myrtle Beach 400 and Southern Nationals big race. But, I think I'm good. I'm just going to, take my time and enjoy this off season. That's for sure.
Okay. Let me ask you this. First of all, Roger.
Yes.
Would you quit messing with that thing?
I'm sharing it to other people.
Well,
Don't look.
I look at the screen and every 0.8 of a second you're changing it. Anyway. See, let me ask you this. Did you get home in time, or were you inclined to watch the Cup race on Sunday?
Oh, absolutely. I was excited to watch it. People were showing me clips from qualifying on Saturday, or was it Friday or Saturday, and these guys were just destroying these race cars. Like, oh my God, this is going to be a bloodbath on Sunday. You may
not have heard earlier. I was talking about what Jimmy did, and my feeling, I've never driven one of these things, I'll tell you that. And you have, and you know what it's like to be winless for a long time, and you come down to a moment when you can either crash or win, and Jimmy apparently did not expect to crash. What do you do if you're in a 48 car, and you know that if you finish second, you make the playoffs? If you win, you please your sponsor, you please your team. What do you do at that moment coming for the checkered flag behind Martin Truex Jr.?
Well, I think also you got to look at some other circumstance too. You know, they pretty much counted the 42 car being out. I mean, that guy's car. I mean, you know, believe me, I'm not a 42 guy fan, but you know, his that thing was done. I mean, he was literally just driving it like a little kid in a video game, just knocking it off the wall to make it back to the finish line. So I think they had written off the 42, you know, not being able to finish the race. And if I'm Jimmy Johnson, I mean, I got 7 championships. I'm gonna be the greatest driver to ever driven in the NASCAR Cup Series. I haven't won in 51 races, like they said. I'm going for the win. You know, this is Charlotte. This is the track that I own. You know, granted it was on the oval, but now we're on the Roval. But this is my track. And you know, like I said, he had set up Truex perfectly. You know, through 3 and 4 into that chicane. That I really feel like Jimmy thought he was going to make the pass, and it looked like he did. And it just, you know, whether the brakes just, you know, they locked up on him, and that was it. But you know, that guy, he's so incredible. I think I can't think of anyone on planet Earth that could, you know, want to second guess Jimmy Johnson. And the dude is literally Superman. And if he felt like he, you know, wanted to go for the win, then by God, he should have gone for the win.
Are you at all surprised that he, in retrospect, looking back on it, which is easy for us to do, are you surprised that he stood there beside his car and said, you know, probably the old pro should have done something a little bit different? He basically admitted he shouldn't have tried what he tried, but that's with the benefit of hindsight. I'm surprised that he tried to win, but I'm not surprised that he admitted he messed up, because I think for a moment there he realized he had messed up big time.
Yeah, I mean, look, the guy's a true professional. I mean, you've probably been around him 10 times more than I have, but every time I've ever seen him do an interview or whatever, I mean, the guy is literally the definition of class, you know? I mean, he's been in a couple of disagreements with drivers, but he's never lost his cool. He's never, you know, got out cussing or, you know, raising hell or anything like that. The guy is just, he's just ice. I mean, he's just Mr. Cool. And, you know, like I said, I think, you know, he was probably disappointed that, I mean, obviously he was disappointed to not make it, but I think, you know, Jimmy Johnson, the competitor, is a guy you don't want to mess with. And I think that's, you know, like I said, I think he was on a winless streak, and, you know, maybe his confidence was a little bit, you know, dashed going into that race. You know, usually he's, you know, won 4 races by now, and for sure, you know, a lock in the playoff. And, you know, I think it was just the competitor and him wanting to win. And like I said, I don't blame the guy one bit. I mean, what were they going to do, go into the next round and not have any bonus points again versus, you know, guys that already have, you know, 40, 50 bonus points? I mean, he was just going to be at the bottom of the food chain again, and probably going to tracks that he really wasn't going to have a shot to. I mean, his cars just haven't been there for him, and that's a fact. So, like I said, I think the guy seized the opportunity to try to win the race, but you know, I feel bad for Truex too. Somebody made a good point here. That race had a, you know, there was a lot going on for his girlfriend, for Sherry, and, you know, she was driving the pace car,
Mm-hmm.
and, you know, they had the car all painted up, you know, teal or whatever, and so there was just 2 guys wanting to win, and you can't fault them for that.
Let me just say one more thing about the Jimmy situation, then I'll get off it. At Richmond on Saturday a week earlier, after he finished, I think, 7th or 8th, just kind of a mediocre run, a bunch of us talked to Jimmy on pit road afterward, and I asked him specifically, I said, Jimmy, the record or the history of your team is that you guys generally do very, very well going to places that are a little bit quirky, that are a little bit different. Y'all do well going to places where a lot of people haven't been before, and you all kind of start out even. He said, we are incredibly optimistic about next Sunday because nobody has got more experience there than anybody else. And you're right, he said, my team generally does very, very well at places where we all start out even. So he performed Sunday exactly as he had expected he would perform based on what he told us Saturday the week earlier. So I don't know if anybody was surprised to see him running second with a lap to go. So just too bad he didn't have more to show for it.
Yeah, and like you say, I don't know. I mean, you probably know better. I mean, you're probably more involved, but I mean, he did perform like his stop and go, and I'm not really sure if he should have. He kind of, I mean, even though he went through the chicane backwards, it's not like he ran the top and cut it up completely off and missed the braking zone. I mean, he just wrecked in the middle of it. I don't understand. Like I said, maybe it was just insurance to stop. I mean, maybe NASCAR did come on the radio and say, you need to stop 48. Because that definitely cost him the positions he would have had to make it. So, but like I said, I'm just a late model guy that, has nowhere near achieved what Jimmy Johnson has. And like I said, the guy thought he was going to make it in there. By God, send it in there, Jimmy. He's the man. So he'll always be the man. And like I say, when he's done, he will go down as the greatest ever. I don't, much respect to, Richard and Dale Sr., but he's the best. I mean, he did in every era possible and every, 4 different types of car changes. And, I mean, he's the man.
Well, you know who Richard thinks was the best of all time? Richard thinks David Pearson was the best of all time. You ask Richard Petty, who's the best driver you ever raced against, he won't even hesitate. He'll say that cat from Spartanburg. So there you go.
Yeah. No, he's a bad man too. That's for sure.
Yeah. CE, we appreciate your time. I know you're probably still celebrating to some extent.
He's already been on what?
I had to go back to work, Al. I wish I could.
Yeah. Next time you call in, we'll get you some other time. We want you to take the cell phone to the clock, and we want to hear the clock ding a couple of times. So keep that in mind and get a long phone or a cell phone so we can hear the clock.
All right, we'll do. Yeah, we'll definitely have to make sure it's about 5 minutes before the hour. That's for sure.
We can do that. We can do that.
Cool. All right. Thank you, guys. I appreciate the opportunity once again. Thanks for having me.
All right. Talk to you later, C.
Bye.
All right. See you guys. Bye-bye.
All right. Somebody else talk. I've talked enough. I've talked too much.
Hang up the phone.
I'm going to shut up.
There you go. I mean, it was a wild race. It took them, 20 minutes to figure out that CE won.
Yeah, it took a while.
I mean,
Didn't take it took who 20 minutes?
The officials.
The officials.
Oh, okay. Well,
It seemed like they didn't know whether to take and do another green-white checker. They were trying to review to see who was actually the leader at the previous green lap before the caution came out. And there was just speculation all over whether it was CE or the other driver. It was back and forth. Was it Pollard got kicked out, and all he wanted to do was talk to the young driver that wrecked him. And it was just a lot of different things going on, a lot of back information. And
I can't tell you how many times I left Martinsville after a late model show thinking I knew who won, only to get a phone call on my cell phone at 10:30 at night coming across the James River Bridge saying, well, they disqualified Ronnie Thomas again. Or they disqualified, name a name. They disqualified somebody or somebody else. So, yeah, at least 20 minutes, that's relatively good for those guys. Sometimes it takes 4 hours.
Well, the second place driver, he was right heated up about it.
Oh, yeah.
He said, no, I was ahead. I mean, and they're talking about just like the distance of a bumper is how far ahead CE got him.
Bumper counts.
Hey, every little minuscule inch. But once again, these guys don't have the funds to have all the stuff for doing the time loop setups on their cars and everything. So they have to race by the regular late model rules. And I think that was what the fans didn't understand was in late models, you go back to the last green lap, who was leading at that point, and then trying to figure out where everybody was at that point. So,
Well, but they've to some extent, they've still got the same cameras and the same photo replay capabilities they did at Charlotte on Sunday. So there should not have been any question about who actually got to the line first. The other question may be valid, but there was no question apparently about who got to the line first. A colleague of mine mentioned yesterday that there had been some grumbling and rumbling among the losers that CE jumped the last restart. But, if you're the leader, you get away with what you can get away with.
yeah, if they let you get away with it, it was legal.
Yeah.
Simple as that. Dale Jr., he got in on a lot of that action too. I don't know if you caught some of the Twitter stuff he was throwing out there. There was a lot of the guys watching it or were down there checking it out. So there was a lot of action from the guys in the upper leagues too, talking about it. But it was an exciting race. The last, 20 laps? How many cautions? I done lost count. It was about 11 cautions.
Something like that.
And then almost every wreck started up front.
Well, any time you have a red flag or anytime you have a kind of a jiggered restart deal where, okay, you're going to stop it halfway, you're going to start somewhere else, the last 20 you're going to be, you're going to have those great finishes because it has been proven time and time again, the shorter the run, the more exciting the finish. It's always been that way.
The only good thing was Darrell Waltrip wasn't there to say cautions breed cautions.
But that's true, it does.
The other thing I thought that was interesting, many years ago when I was going out there at Martinsville, I was talking to Mike Smith. When he was out there, I said, you need to get this late model race, stream it on the internet. You can even get people would pay for this race. And eventually they finally got it on Fans Choice, which I thought was pretty cool.
It's first year?
Yeah, this is the first time they did it. I think everybody just enjoyed all the stuff that went on last year, so.
I might have watched it Saturday night if I'd known it was on.
You can still rewatch
Yeah.
it.
You can go back and watch
It's
it.
okay.
Fans Choice is something we got it saved.
I know who won. It's not exciting anymore.
By the way, Andre Greer, who's always watching or sometimes on the show with us, it's his birthday today. I want to give him a shout out.
Oh, happy
for his
birthday.
Okay.
And you had a lot of people talking about you, Caitlyn. I don't know why you didn't say anything about anybody.
I didn't see anything.
Well, what does your poll say up there?
This is the first time I've thrown a poll up there. I do not know what it's going to say. There's a publish now thing here. Looks like nobody cared to guess at it.
I don't think you had it published yet.
Nobody's voted.
I don't know. This is something new Facebook threw out there, so I tried to throw it up there. We'll see what it does. See if it shows up on the regular feed. Anywho, so we also have Caitlyn Joyner in here with us. She's been helping out Al over here, talking with everybody.
Trying to.
She's not talking nearly enough. I'm going to shut up.
It's her turn. She gets to now. Caitlyn, introduce yourself.
I'm Caitlyn. I'm 15. I race Super Streets, Atlanta Speedway, number 48. And I'm sponsored by Car Masters Automotive and Amsoil Synthetics. Wow. That was a hard one.
Come on, you got awful quiet over there.
I always get quiet.
Start bragging.
About what?
About what you do. Come on.
I'm 7th in the points right now. I have Rookie of the Year tied up, thankfully, because that was my main goal this season. And, that's all I got.
So how'd you get into racing?
Eric Wickheiser. He started me out. He texted my mom one day and said, hey, you should bring Caitlyn out. I think she'll really like this. And if she doesn't, oh well. She doesn't have to do it again. So we went out, and I about peed my pants the first time I started up a kart. Like, I was ready to go, not having it. And then they started up a kid kart, and Robbie Pellick, who was probably 6 at the time, if even that, hopped in his go-kart in this parking lot and was just going at it. And I was like, okay, that's fine. It's not too bad. Maybe I'll do it. Maybe I won't. And then they started up Madison's kart, which was a gold plate flathead with a loop pipe, which sounds incredible. And at that point, I was like, yeah, I'm going to go put on a suit. I'll be back in 5 minutes. And it was the most fun I've ever had. I think I did 2 laps. And then I came in, flipped my visor up, and I was like, yeah, I want one of these. And then I flipped it down and went straight back. And then we started working on my own kart with Eric during the week after school and stuff. And I started racing. Got 4 wins in my first 5 races.
Cool.
Then I moved up and kind of didn't have the hang of things yet. So I was kind of, just trying to learn. But, yeah.
So after doing all the kart racing, what got you into Super Street?
Jim Bennett. He actually watched me a couple of races racing Predator in Junior 3 at Langley, and he was like, hey, you're doing good. I believe in you. Do you want to hop in one of my cars? And I was like, heck yeah, dude. I was like, don't gotta question me about that. So then him and Nate talked, and my mom, and they decided about this partnership that we'd have. And been racing for him all year. And next year, too.
You got anything that you're going to try to move up after next year?
It depends on how next year goes. I don't want to hop into different classes too fast without experience. But I'm hoping to either go into modifieds or late models.
It's a big jump from...
It was a big jump from karts to super streets.
Yeah.
But
also in high school.
I'm doing decent.
Has mom and dad said, okay, keep making A's and we'll put you in a late model?
No.
But you at least got the making A's part down, right?
Yeah, I got principals list, man. I'm doing great.
You do like everybody else says they can't stand math?
Oh no, I used to hate it. I was horrible at it. In tears doing homework. Because I just couldn't get my mind around it. And then Nate's an engineer, so he was like, what are you talking about? Your teachers are just explaining this not good. So he started basically tutoring me every day after school. And I'm good at it now.
Well, you do realize a lot of racing stuff is figured out with math, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I'm doing equations about tire sizes and gear ratios. But, yeah, it's not that hard anymore.
Good. What well, I mean, between school and racing, what do you have time? What else to do?
Breathe.
Breathe.
Eat sometimes,
What about sleep? Do you manage to squeeze that in?
Some nights, just,
Uh-oh. Nate had something to say. Something about most certainly not about something.
I don't know what he's talking about.
Probably that the car doesn't start with B's.
Oh, yeah.
The what?
That's probably it.
The car doesn't start with B's.
The car doesn't start with B's.
Definitely won't start with a C.
No, with C's it doesn't start. With B's it's
The
iffy.
grades. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm thinking bumblebees when you say B's. I'm thinking, where did she think cars would start with B's? What is this? A honeymobile or something? Winnie the Pooh drives it or what?
No. If my grades aren't good enough, I don't race, which has never happened before. So, doing good.
By the way, yes, that's what I had to do. I had to click post it. When people are actually putting their 2 cents in now. 75% say Jimmy did mess up, and 25% say he did. So far it's looking good for Jimmy.
Yeah.
They're wrong.
Well, Allie, you can sign in on Facebook and vote too.
Well, I mean, I think they're wrong because if the issue at hand was winning the race, and yes, and they're right, he did the right thing. If the issue at hand was advancing toward championship number 8, if that was the issue, then he did wrong, and there's no way to argue that. It's like a golfer being 3 strokes ahead going to the last hole, or 2 strokes ahead going to the last hole, and trying to do something that he completely didn't need to do, like, drive the green with it just...
Try to drive a 400-yard shot or something.
Or it would be like my New England Patriots being ahead by 3 with a minute to play at midfield, and Tom Brady's still throwing passes when all you have to do is take a knee and you're going to win. Well, you just, the opportunity it's not real good.
Hey, talking about football, Al. I have a good
Now, wait,
question.
before I finish.
Okay.
If winning the race was the biggest thing of the day for Jimmy Johnson's team, he did the right thing. If advancing into the playoffs and winning the championship was a bigger deal, then he did the wrong thing, as it turned out. But 2020 is unimaginable this time of day. So anyway.
Oh, they're starting to sway towards you now, Al, saying yes.
Do what now?
They're starting to sway to you. Went from 25% to 40% now.
No, I don't. It doesn't matter to me. I know what I think. I don't care what they think.
Oh, it just reminds me.
Most of them voted for Trump too. So anyway, don't get me started on that.
Analogy about football: when the Green Bay Packers and the Vikings played, and the place kicker / field goal kicker missed 5 attempts. Any one of them would have won the game.
Right.
So, I mean, there are just variables like that out there that just totally blows your mind. Between him and the Cleveland Browns kicker, they both got fired come Monday morning. Because neither one of them could make a doggone field goal or a point after.
Well, yeah, but that's him missing 5 field goals was not a decision-making moment. Going for a if all you need is 2 kneel downs at midfield to win a game, and you start throwing passes, that's a decision, a badly made decision. Jimmy trying to pass for the win was first of all a bad decision, and secondly poorly managed. So you finish second. You're thrilled to advance to the playoffs. You go to Dover. You have a great 3-race run. You advance to the next round of the playoffs, Martinsville, Texas, Phoenix. You go to Homestead, and all is forgiven. So, if he had wrecked Truex and still won, Truex would be ticked, but not to a wrecking him back kind of perspective. So I think the big picture for Jimmy's team was making the playoffs, and they would have done it by simply taking the hand they were dealt with a lap to go. But that's why I'm a keyboard jockey and not a race car driver. So
Well, I do like this. Marshall Haynes summed it up this way. He said the race at Martinsville was way better than the Roval. The Roval's still put him to sleep.
well, if it put him to sleep, then he nothing's going to save his life. No, I would agree with him if he said the Roval was not as exciting, but the part about putting him to sleep, he must have had a hard Saturday night to not stay awake for that race. But anyway,
Well, any more to shine on the Roval, Al? What's your final decision? Good for NASCAR, bad for NASCAR. Good for fans, bad for fans.
well, 60-40 says he did the right thing. So I'm not arguing with them. I'm just saying they're wrong.
So
The Roval will be back next year. Marcus Smith told us that he would not create a road course at Atlanta, Texas, Kentucky, New Hampshire, or where's his other track? Big track. I guess Bristol. Yeah, he would not. He's not going to build more Rovals. He thinks Charlotte should be the only Roval. So, but it will be there. I would guess it will be there for at least a few years. Now they may rejigger the track. They may make it slightly different, bigger, smaller. I don't know. But the racing lanes were not very wide.
No.
They might need to add a little bit of apron, a little bit of runoff area. People got a lot of signage. Bojangles got a lot of exposure when that car ran through the Bojangles sign and made a lap with it across the front. The other car that ran through a signage and drug it behind it like a shark fin. I forget who the sponsor was, but they got to be happy. They got a lot of ink. I mean, a lot of airtime.
Be interesting to see that little report they used to have, how much the airtime was worth that weekend.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
All right, let's go eat. 8 o'clock.
Okay. Anything else interesting to throw out there before we go out?
No, I'm going to Dover tomorrow, so I need to get an early start.
All right. They got the K&N race this weekend too, right?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I think so.
And I'm glad we didn't talk about the girl who won it in California.
Why not?
Well, do it more than once. I mean, I can name 20 drivers who've won one race, and they've been called the next great thing. They never showed back up again.
One of your favorite was Danica, wasn't it? When she won.
She never won one. And I hope that young girl in California doesn't aspire. I hope she doesn't aspire to be the next Danica, because the first Danica wasn't very good.
Be your own self.
All
Be
right.
thy own self, be true. All right, everybody, we're going to catch y'all next week. We enjoyed having y'all join in and giving us your 2 cents worth. And we'll catch everybody again on Let's Talk Racing next week. Good night. See ya.
I might even be here.
Good night, everybody. Give me a wave, Caitlyn.